Hello and welcome back to the SWAN Pricing Show. Today, my name is Filip Fucic. I'm a pricing mentor.
Hi, Philip Zolota, business mentor. You can proceed.
We wanted to talk about parts of the price, let's say, right? Because it's one of those things that everybody understands. Everybody knows how it looks until you try to pin it down, and then it's like, well, right? Because um in the duck world, in the commoditized service space, everything is mostly standardized when it comes to pricing. And yes, it's enough if you say you know $120, right? Right, that's the service. However, there's a much greater variety of options when it comes to this one world, the expertise service space. So every price needs to have, apart from its rate, so how much of what kind of money, right? Okay. You need to say how you measure it. You need to say at what granularity, I'll explain. For what duration, what's the billing method, and usually what's the incentive to do something that I, as a seller, want you to do, right? And this is important because unlike the duck world, you have a much bigger influence on what these things can be, and you can absolutely get an advantage over somebody who is nominally has a lower rate by mixing and matching other elements of the price, right? So what you want to avoid is to be compared, let's say, apples to apples. Oh, you said 120. Well, that guy can do it for 80. Sure, but right? What's the basis? Is this per hour, or is this per job done? Maybe it's per page. Maybe it's per customer served. Maybe it's per. So this matters, because if you're paying 80 per hour and here I'm charging you 120 per customer served, and because this is such a service that it takes 2 hours to service a customer, you're actually paying more if you're paying 80, right? Significantly more. So even if mostly everybody in your industry does one way, it doesn't really mean that you need to do it that way as well. And sometimes people are going to accept that because it makes more sense, right? It makes more sense to pay per customer service, not per hour, because hours can vary. But customers, but just because somebody got service for 3 hours, or 2.5 on average, doesn't really mean that you get paid more, because you get paid per customer. So maybe you want to also pay per customer. Maybe nobody does it like that, but maybe they should. And maybe they will when you start to. So that's like, that's changing the basis. Everybody knows about changing the rate, but you can also change the basis of the unit of measure, right? Have you ever varied on that?
Yeah, definitely. Especially when you are checking the grand scheme of things, in terms of time and time span, working in some respectable niche or industry, whatever. you're practically starting with hourlies, and then you simply switch toward something in terms of basis what is more applicable and more meaningful and connected with the value you generate as the service. So definitely. Also, as you mentioned, there are respectable cases where it's more practical to go down the route of, for example, hourlies compared to fixed amount, but it depends on the scope, on the requirements, case by case. So it's not something which you can use as a general copycat in every possible situation. It is important for you to have the adequate baseline, which you will be easily applying depending on the requirements and situation what you have on the table. So the level of agility and flexibility is important, meaning that you are being adequately prepared and have entire scope already predetermined, so you can align and set up proper case and scenario depending on what's on the table in terms of business opportunity, collaboration, level of engagement, and similar.
Yes. I also advised a client who had to provide ad advice on taxes over the phone, and she initially wanted to charge per minute, but I was against that because the value of the advice doesn't really scale per minute. 12-minute advice of worth of advice is not better than 2. So it makes no sense for it to cost 6 times as much. So we switched to fixed amounts per call, which was high but fixed. Everybody who called knew, okay, this is how this much this is going to cost this much, and no more. And if I get advice that will save me more than that, then this was a good deal, no matter how much it costs. So that allowed my client to always charge more than enough for every call, and not to pay attention to time, because if the client on the other side of the phone has a particularly easy issue, she can be done in seconds and still make the same money, as long as the client is satisfied. And they were, and they are, and they're calling, and the only thing that we changed basically is the basis. Now we can also talk about granularity, which is the level of detail. So what I mean by that is, if something is charged per hour, maybe it's per hour, but maybe it's per 15 minutes or 5 minutes or 5 seconds, right? It will change the outcome, and it will change how exactly the service is going to be rendered. What I mean by that is, maybe we mentioned that, but like a year ago, about Dostoevsky, right? War and Peace. It's a doorstopper, and everybody knows it is. It's a very, very thick book, and it makes sense that it is, not because of some quirk of personality of Dostoevsky, but he was paid by the word, and of course, his books are enormous, right? And we had to learn, read through a couple of works of Dostoevsky in school, in high school, right? You and me both. And nobody ever mentioned to us, we had these elaborate analyses where you presented to the teacher, why did the author, feel the need to fill 2 pages with the description of one goddamn tree next to the train tracks in St. Petersburg. And the real reason is he was paid by the word, right? And everything else, every possible reason beyond that, pales in comparison. So,
and a big gap for us to be caught not knowing the details because we actually didn't read it fully. We also had that experience. Sorry for the digression.
Totally. Yes, yes, yes. It's all part of growing up. But so this is a question of granularity, right? If he was paid by the sentence, maybe the structure of the writing would be with many more full stops, right? Um, if he was paid by the book being done, maybe it would have 10% of its volume, because you absolutely could tell the same story with 10% of the words, but then you're paid 10 times less. So, right, the incentive is obvious. So granularity matters very much. So I never really charged per hour, but for a long while I charged per meeting, and meeting was a minimum of 2 hours. You could, people say, what if I have to leave early? Leave early. You're just paying for 2 hours. But as far as I'm concerned, if you really insist, you don't have to show up at all. Just pay for it. Uh, so a minimum of 2 hours is a minimum. So that's an issue of granularity. So nominally, if somebody charged the same amount of money as me, but had a smaller granularity, that would be cheaper, right? Because here, if you want to leave after 1.5 meetings, that's 3 hours. You still have to pay for 4, and there you wouldn't, right? So that's granularity. Then we have, of course, duration. I let's say delimitation, because it can be duration as in for 2 months, but it can also be when it comes to like per projects. It can be results milestones as well. So duration up until this happens. So my current program is up until somebody can charge at least 15% more successfully. When they charge, then my work is done, right? Usually that takes 3 months. But the duration is not set by time. The duration is set by a milestone, let's say, right?
And it's a good practice because you can that way track and trace the progress of the work, no matter the type scope, or you're doing consultancy, you're doing some technical implementation, digitalization, automation, whatever. It's tangible, it's quantifiable, and you can track it adequately. So you can, as said, follow the path and have everything aligned. And also what is important on the recipient side, meaning the client, they can connect to something. If they have unclear scope of activities and we have some devilish goal down there in the future, it's out of reach. These milestones are more easy to grab, to hook, and they're more closer. So people are connecting themselves to it. So it is easier to follow the progress. And as said, a good practice to be implemented.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And also in that way, you don't have a feeling like you're on the clock.
Yeah.
So you can get stuck into work and then see, oh, okay, this one was actually easy. I just had to sit down and think about it, not set up a timer and then write it down, and then you go to the bathroom and you write that you stopped. And that's also, by the way, an issue of granularity. When you say, let's say it's per hour, is it per ideal hour? Is it per actual time that you worked? So ideal hour means, I'm saying an hour, it's probably going to be 45 minutes, because every hour there's something that I have to do. Somebody calls me, something, right? Or an hour would be an hour, or is it an hour writing? Because, you've been thinking for 3 hours first, and then you started writing. Or are you writing the whole time just to be writing, like Dostoevsky? So It's
15 kilograms of writing. Thanks.
exactly so writing is not writing, so working is not working, right?
Mhm.
When you have all of these um solutions for work from home, which notices when you stop moving your mouse, right? Like, if you're not moving your mouse, then you're not working. Somebody severely misunderstood the nature of work, right? Then you have all of these talented programmers spending their time moving their mouse while they think about the way to. I think they're called mouse jigglers. So there's programs that move your mouse, in a way that fools those kinds of programs, because it's just a total waste on all accounts, right?
And
Because some,
you also have the hardware, the same thing, not software based, but the hardware which is moving your mouse. I saw that a few days back, I think on YouTube, something like that.
yeah, that can be detected, right? You can detect software installed on like a work computer, but this is a hardware thing which cannot be detected, right? The mouse is moving, right? It's objectively moving. I'm
Yeah.
definitely not working, but uh, yeah. Anyway. So if you have a duration by result or by milestone, then you are free from time constraints. So of course there could be, you have to be done by, I don't know, by the beginning of summer, or the end of this month, or the end of this week, doesn't really matter. But if you do it in 12 minutes because you're feeling inspired, great, you're done. You don't now have 48 minutes of looking at the wall, or
Mhm.
wondering, could okay, I was fast with this, but um do I charge for this now, or don't I charge for this now, and how fast would a regular person do it? And of course, we always undersell that, because um there's all sorts of
Mhm.
weird stuff that happens when you start to think about that, right? So
Mhm.
anyway, that's the duration. So we had the rate, basis, so the unit of measure, granularity, and duration. We still have two more to go through. One is the billing method. So how you charge, as in, is it a flat fee up front? Is it a subscription? Is it milestone-based payments, retainer, time and material, success fee? What? You know? Right.
Mhm.
You're going to get $3,000. Great. But if it's a success fee, I know a lot of people that would rather pay $6,000 of a success fee to a lawyer than $100 per hour. We'll see.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
Because you may pay much more than end up paying much more than 6,000 and still not get any results, right? So it really really it's simply not the same price if it's 400 an hour, or paid up front, maybe, because this is going to be 10 hours. You pay up front and you're not going to pay any more. So if it takes more, it takes longer, it takes longer. That's one thing. That another is, okay, time and materials. Let's see how long this costs, and by the end, we'll know how many hours do we multiply by 400 hours. Both is 400 an hour. Is absolutely not the same price,
Yeah.
and it will
Yeah.
not be seen as the same price from a client's perspective. So simply stating your rate is not enough, because it doesn't really tell you much, right? Tells you something, but not much. Um, so what's your usual billing method?
Ah, for us, we are
Yeah.
always being paid upfront, 100%. That is also the confirmation of the engagement, and then we proceed and move forward. how I also love to address to people who I also help and supporting implement the same thing is that way you're saving the objectivity status. And that is what is also important, because what is often happening if you have some delayed payment arranged, you deliver the service and afterwards you send an invoice, so you practically are able to go to the second month, second bill is being created in the meantime, and you have two overdue invoices waiting in the pipeline, and you are in the bad situation. This way, saving the objectivity, saving the flow, having control of the cash flow, and that is the proper method. And I see that more often now being used and applied, especially in expertise-based business, and I'm happy to see that.
I think David C. Baker also says in his latest book that being paid up front will let you be frank with a client, because you
Exactly.
don't because it's your job not to make him happy, but to do your job so that they can make decisions based on reality and not a sugar-coated variation of reality that is that is something that you dare to say without upsetting the client, because if they're upset maybe you won't get paid. No, you first get paid and then you get frank, and that is the best service that you can give to a client as an expert, right?
Yeah, and when you mentioned David C. Baker, one cool thing, the same practice what I do is that you are having a middle retainer, however you want to call it, the account. So the money is there, but not being utilized and used until it's been actually earned, meaning service and value delivered. Only after that you can take that amount and use it however you want. And that is definitely a good practice, because that is also a redundancy plan in case something happens, something goes downsides, or you also have the strength to say so long farewell to the client who is potentially not a good fit. You thought they're a good fit, but you see the things aren't moving as you planned or as you wanted to go further. So that is
So
also
you can seriously threaten with returning the money and
yeah,
your
yeah,
ball and
yeah,
going home,
yeah, yeah,
with conviction in your voice, right?
yeah.
Yeah, that's a
I
great
did that
way to practice.
several times, and it's cool. Definitely,
It's empowering, yeah.
yeah, yeah. It was very strange to the other side. How do you mean you'll be returning the money? Where is it? Here we are. Move. Let's go. it's it's that simple.
Yes. So billing method will also absolutely change the nature of a price. And lastly, we can talk about, well, people usually say discounts, but I would prefer to call it incentives,
Yeah.
right? So there's this example that I made in this article.
Uh-huh.
Let me just, yes, this one, right? So rate, basis, granularity, duration, billing method, and incentive. Here, this is a 10% discount for retainers of 6 months or more, right? So that's an incentive for a client to do something that is worth my while as an expert selling my expertise, right? I want them to take me on 6 months or more, because then I can count on that revenue, and for that I'm happy to divulge a 10% discount, something like this. However, this doesn't have to mean this doesn't have to mean discount at all, right?
Yeah.
It can be some kind of loyalty points. It can be exclusive access.
The
It can
bundle, as we mentioned in the pre-show.
yes, a bundle, or free shipping, or some referral bonuses, or uh, um, a giveaway of some kind, right? So incentives can be other things, and they also change the nature of the price, right? If I can say, okay, so this is $400 an hour, and also all of the website changes that you need to make are on me. Well, that's a different thing than just saying for her 400 an hour. It's a different price,
Yeah.
right? Um, because there's going to be website changes, right? So that means that everybody else that offers me $300 an hour, well, yeah, but God knows how much the website changes will cost, you know. Um, or it's 400 an hour, or it's 400 a milestone, but it's the buy one get one free. That sounds the same as a discount, but research has shown that people absolutely prefer a buy one get one free to a simple discount. Although mathematically it checks out, but in human heads it's not.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like Coca-Cola never really has discounts, but you can get the larger bottle. Not the one like that, but the one like that. Which has a quarter more of the product, and we kind of see it as a discount, but we still pay the same price.
Yeah.
So technically, it looks like a discount, but it's not, right? All sorts of things can be incentives. So guarantees are also a discount. Sorry, an incentive, not a discount. Guarantees, like I think we talked about when you give an offer and you stand by your offer. So you say, so this is not an estimate. This is an offer. So if I say this is going to be 100 hours, this is going to be 100 hours, and even if it's 160, you're still only paying for 100 hours.
Exactly, within the
So
scope.
yes, the risk is mine. The risk
Yeah.
of overflow is mine, right? Which is completely different than somebody saying it's, I don't know, it's 80 per hour, but I think it's going to be 100 hours, but if it's going to be 160, it's going to be, you're going to pay for 160. It can end up costing more than the 100 per hour, right? So I think it's important when we talk about pricing to feel free to iterate, not just on the rate, but also on the basis, on the granularity, duration, billing method, and incentive. And with all of those, the main goal is to find a combination that is purposeful, that makes sense for the client. So let's say, for example, for the basis, so the unit of measure can be anything as long as it's, well, legal, easy to measure, easy to understand, and the client actually wants it to happen. So per paying customer makes sense because the client makes revenue per paying customer. But per cups of coffee maybe doesn't, because the client doesn't really want more coffees to be consumed, right? You can measure it, but it doesn't really add up to anything, right? But as long as you can find ways in which this can be iterated, it's a really, really good idea to do that, because then you are much harder to compare apples to apples. And you always want to avoid that, because as we talked about so many times, in the duck world, it's really easy to simply check the rates and say, oh, so it's the same thing, but this one is cheaper. Okay, obviously I'm going with this. In the SWAN world, that comparison breaks down very, very quickly. and you can barely know enough um, to compare, let alone compare well, just on the rate differences, right?
Mhm.
So did you want to add anything else?
Yeah, just practically wanted to mention one more thing.
Mhm.
Generally, as you said, with the adequate approach to the pricing and having into consideration all these elements, you are having the control of the situation. And we know that in business conversation and deal closing before the engagement, you are practically managing the expectations and managing the risks. So good and well balanced, it's your strength because with adequate setup, you can practically, with adequate approach and good approach to pricing and pricing setup, you can resolve all potential objections, especially create entire ecosystem supporting your business and service delivery based on the actual client's requirements. So you know what were all the objections you've been confronted with as you were going. So now you can actually provide optimal case and scenario depending from the niche to scenario, and that way strongly impact both on deal closing in terms of receiving higher rate in closing and overall client satisfaction because you are giving
Yes.
the value to the clients. And that is all what I wanted to mention practically through all that you said in terms of all key elements of the price.
Where can people find you, Philip?
People can find me on LinkedIn and also on my mentorship page, philipzolota.com.
People can find me on fearless-pricing.com and LinkedIn, especially these days. Thank you for being here today, and see you next week.
See you.